This is about a highway supplier guide that my organisation, the Civil Engineering Contractors Association, has been working on with Highways England and some of our members. And they were due to be sitting on your seats. You will notice that they're not. That is because we had a last-minute production issue, and so we're unfortunately not able to bring them here today. However, what I do intend to do is run through the contents of the guide and why we put this together in the first place. So, just before I get into that, a little bit of context as to who I am and why I'm here. My organisation, Civil Engineering Contractors Association, pretty much does what it says on the tin. We are the representative body for UK civil firms, UK infrastructure contractors. We've got about 300 members around the country, and I'm really pleased to say that pretty much the majority of the market, about 80% of that market, is in seeker membership. In terms of Highways England, every major project delivered by Highways England, every major project delivered by Highways Agency before it has been delivered by our members. We're also active in the maintenance community, and many of our members operate at Tier 2, Tier 3 in the supply chain. So Highways is a hugely important market for us. So, why are we here today in terms of the project? Well, I go take you back to 2015, around the time of Highways England's formation. Clearly, the formation of Highways England was part of a move to get more pounds in the ground in terms of investment in the UK or in the English strategic roads network. But in Office of Rail and Roads role, having oversight of Highways England, even back then they identified that with this increase in investment, there was a potential challenge around whether there was the capacity in the market to deliver that level of increased investment. Not only because you were ramping up the amount of money being spent on the strategic roads network, but also there were noises off stage. We're building a bloody great railway up to Birmingham fairly shortly. We're going to be building some nuclear power stations. There's a whole lot of other investment on other networks around the country. Was that going to put too much pressure on the supply chain? Was it going to overheat? Was there going to be a failure to deliver? In particular, the report said that at Tier 2 and below, there was a particular challenge about not only having the skills, but knowing what the skills that they were supposed to be developing would be. So, in terms of our initial response, we worked with our major Tier 1 contractors working directly for Highways England. And we talked about, well, wouldn't it be good if we could provide some sort of mentoring, if we could sit on the shoulder of some of the Tier 2s and talk about what they needed to know. There was a particular focus on leadership and management capability, because that's where the initial discussions, there was a sense that perhaps there wasn't the strength of leadership and management in order to drive through a rapidly improving programme. But as soon as you start having that conversation, you think, well, why just focus on that? Why just do something on leadership and management? There's loads of other things that we could be focusing on, whether that's efficiency, health and safety, employment issues, sustainability, visibility of workload. There's loads of other separate conversations we could be having. So in order to find out what the supply chain wanted, to be blunt, there was no point in just examining our own navels. We needed to go out there and ask suppliers, where did they see the challenges? What were the things that they were looking for? So, 2016 summer, we carried out a survey, and we looked at and we said, look, if we're going to run this mentoring project, what should we be focused on? What should our mentors really know about so they'll help you in your business? And what was surprising was the answers that they came up with were perhaps not so much about mentoring. It was about, I want to know my customer better, whether that customer is Tier 1 or whether that customer is the Highways England that they're working for. And they also wanted to know what the pipeline of workload looked like, and they wanted to be able to network with their potential customers. So that meant that we were perhaps thinking, are we in the right space? Have we got the right answer to the question here? So at that point, there was somewhat of a change in direction for the project. The challenges there was that there was a very high demand. So we got a huge response to the survey, and more came in over time, even after we closed the survey. So there was clearly pent-up demand there. So what could we do about it? Mentoring didn't feel like the right answer, and instead we turned to some work that we as Seeker had done when the nuclear sector was really kicking off, probably around 2010, 2011. in that sector, we prepared guidance documents for suppliers seeking to enter that market, originally called Nuclear New Entrant Toolkit, later called Infrastructure Horizons Nuclear. But it basically was a document that was here are the things that you need to know. And the question was, could we do the equivalent for highways? So, as with any project, we started out with a mission and vision. It's there on the screen. I'm not going to go through it in great detail, but just to highlight, in the vision, we said that within 2 years, we would have clear and consistent guidance for the supply chain about the competencies that would be beneficial for suppliers working in the strategic highways market, and it would be easily accessible. And so that got us thinking, well, what does that actually look like? So our first point of call was there were those tier one contractors, and it was, you're all doing really good things, but there's things you could each learn from from each other in terms of supply chain best practice. So we had that conversation, brought the group together and started that discussion. But then the really important bit of work was, how do we put together this guidance? What's the important elements that need to be within that guidance? And then once we've done that, how do we get out there and brief about it? And then as a final point was the thing that we'd come in thinking was going to be the priority, which was where there's a real need to provide support, could we provide some mentoring? So the Highway Supplier Guide is where we've ended up. This is something that we've been working on for the last year. It's broken down into 3 parts. The first is the understanding of what Highways England is. It's still a relatively new organisation, so having that common understanding of what it is, what it's about, felt really important. But the second part of it is for those supply chain businesses, what are the things that you would need to know to be successful? It's not a mandate. You don't have to tick every box in this report in order to win work, but it's hopefully there is some guidance, some pointers, some helpers towards where you can identify knowledge that will help develop the business to support working in the English strategic road network market. And finally, it was around the contacts. So if you want to work, who should you be speaking to, whether it's in relation to winning work or whether it's in relation to some of the specific issues that are covered in the document. So I'll just go through quickly some of those parts. So first, what is Highways England? Well, I mean, if you're here today, I'm hoping you've all got an interest in Highways England, but the document just provides a sort of a detailed overview of what some of the key elements of understanding Highways England are. So it starts with the road investment strategy, the overarching document that has focused attention for what is going to be delivered. Then it breaks down into the strategic business plan, in essence, the how in answer to the road investment strategy is what. Then we break it down again further into the delivery plan. So that gets into the detail of the what actually is going to happen and when. Crucially, we then go into the key performance indicators and the imperatives. Now, I've just come across on the Jacob stage where we were talking about the successes of RIS1 and some of the challenges. Now, for me, one of the successes of RIS1 was these imperatives, this laser-like focus on what was really important to Highways England as a customer, but not only important to Highways England as a customer, but important to the users of the road network as well. So we go through that in the report. We also give an overview of the structure of Highways England. One of the challenges that we got in terms of feedback from suppliers when we did the survey was, I don't know all of the bits of the organisation. I don't know who I'm supposed to be speaking to. I don't know where bits of work come out of. So we provide details on the structure of Highways England. In any question with supply chain, people want to know what the workload looks like coming forward. So the document actually breaks it down. It provides that pipeline of what the future opportunities are. Now, very obviously, one of the things about a pipeline is you can't just publish something and preserve it in aspect. So we'll be keeping that up to date as the pipeline develops to make sure there's always visibility of what the future investment program looks like. And by doing so, hopefully help suppliers to be better prepared for delivering in that world. So we also touch upon the supply chain strategy. So this has been published by Highways England, and it talked about the relationship that Highways England wanted to have with its supply chain, not solely at tier one level, but down into the supply chain. So I've just put up some of the key points there. So it's this idea of more of a focus on relationships and less on contracts and compliance. It's about motivating success and less penalising failure. Trying to get away from some of the failures of the past and actually moving towards a positive relationship that delivers between Highways England and its supply chain. In that zone, more value improvement, more shared outcomes, and really trying to grasp tomorrow's innovation so that we recognise that the world we're working in is changing, and we're bringing the best of that innovation in for use on the network, making things more efficient, making things safer. We also cover off the procurement strategy. I'm sure elsewhere in at Highways UK today, there will be other discussions about this. But for the purposes of the document, we just identified some of the key routes that Highways England uses for its direct procurement. So it illustrates where they are. Clearly, some of these things are changing. So again, the nature of the guide means we can update this as these things change. And then, for me, this is the most important bit of the document. We have a large section which is on the priorities for suppliers working on the Highways England network. These were the things that when we did a desktop study of all the things that are being asked for, whether it's Highways England asking for its Tier 1s, the Tier 1s asking from their Tier 2s and below. These were the subjects that kept on coming up over and over again. So we've tried to provide some detail as to what these actually mean, where there's advice, where there's guidance that you can tap into to help you focus on these issues. So the first of these was health, safety and well-being. I don't need to tell you that for Highways England this is absolutely top of the agenda, and it is top of the agenda for our members as well. So we picked up some of the key points there around having a leadership and culture that promotes health, safety and well-being, ensuring that you've got competent people that they can do the job in a safe manner, that you're managing the risks around health, safety and well-being so that they're not being realised, you're recognising and dealing with them ahead, that you're measuring your performance around this so you know where your challenges may still exist and you can attack those. That Highways England, this is where they're engaging with their stakeholders, so they're speaking to people out with the industry and also the supply chain to address stakeholders. And well-being, for many of you who work in the industry, you'll have seen this issue rise up the agenda very rapidly over the last few years. So we've perhaps provided some pointers on where you can get better guidance on well-being as an issue. I've just highlighted here a couple of the things that we do signpost. So Raising the Bar initiative, Highways England bring together a real focus on best practice, and behind that the Highway Safety Hub, a website where you can go and get information about many of the issues that we've been talking about in terms of health and safety. So, customer service. Along with health and safety, customer service is one of the Highways England's 3 imperatives. So we wanted to make sure there was a strong section on this about what actually great customer service means. Some of the points there, delivering the basics, improving service to the network, and developing relationships with Highways England customers. We've broken down, given some detail as to what that actually means. There's other points there, but I know we're quite tight for time, so I'm going to push through quite quickly. On leadership and management, this, as I say, this was where we sort of came into this. There was a lot of feedback both from government, from our own members, from suppliers themselves and from Highways England to say this was a challenge area around the capability and competence in terms of leadership and management at Tier 1 and in the supply chain. Now Highways England has responded to this itself through the creation of its Roads Academy, and that is open to provide really high-class, highways-focused training on leadership and management, but also through our own engagement with organisations like the Construction Industry Training Board, CITB, there's the Construction ILM. Now we can help you get access to that, in many cases free, to get high quality leadership and management training, and that's where I think we can add value. We can bring that kind of support to industry. Finally, collaborative working. A real flavour over recent years is the shift towards more collaborative relationships within the supply chain and with Highways England. So it's trying to signpost where there's some guidance, where there's advice on collaborative working. I've mentioned ISO 44001, the international standard around this. I don't want to give the impression that that's mandatory. It certainly isn't. But it certainly is as a framework to guide in terms of what collaborative working can look like. I think that's a good starter for 10. Sorry, I'm just working my way through my notes. So, on efficiency and effectiveness. There is a big efficiency challenge for Highways England, given that the basis of setting up Highways England was that they would be able to drive more efficiency through the longer-term investment programme. There's a need to respond to that, to actually drive those efficiencies through. So we've tried for suppliers to try and point in the direction of some of the things that are there to help in terms of each individual supplier playing their part in delivering that efficiency. So we talk about Lean and the Highways Efficiency HELMA program. We talk about the Lean Construction Institute. On innovation, we talk about the designated funds and other sources of funding where you can get support in your business to develop innovative ideas that might help drive that efficiency. We've got a section there on BIM because we recognise that there is a big shift to build using the BIM environment, and by doing so, drive out cost and provide more effective delivery. This is a subject that's particularly close to my heart, equality, diversity and inclusion. Unfortunately, our industry still probably doesn't accurately reflect some of the communities that we work in, and we need to do more and make our industry attractive and inclusive to all of the people that could potentially work in it, to ensure both that we meet the skills challenge, but also that we understand better those that we're working with. So there, we've signposted some of the work that we've done as the Civil Engineering Contractors Association, developing our Fairness, Inclusion and Respect programme with CITB. That's industry-leading guidance on fairness, inclusion and respect issues. Sitting alongside that, our contemporaries in the Chartered Institute of Highways and Transportation have developed their Diversity and Inclusion Toolkit, which is a really great bit of advice, guidance that you can use to help develop these issues within your business. We talk about equalities frameworks, again, issues there around support to get your business in the right place in terms of EDI issues. And finally, we mentioned about the Supplier Diversity Forum, where those suppliers that are working for Highways England are working together to drive through some of these issues. And finally, on sustainability. I think when we have a conversation about sustainability, we tend to focus a lot on environmental, but Highways England is very clear in its sustainable development strategy that sustainability means much more than that. It means financial sustainability, so that's financial sustainability for your companies and the industry as a whole. It's about human sustainability. It is about natural sustainability, so some of those environment issues, but also social and manufactured sustainability. And the document hopefully gives further advice on what that actually means. So again, you can respond. It could signpost to better guidance on some of these issues. So this brings us to and how do we deliver this? And this is where I'd hoped by today to have been able to provide details of the document and to have a website that we could go live with for you today. The website was because we recognised that the easiest way to keep things updated was not to reproduce a guide every 3 months, every 6 months, but to actually have something that we could live update with new information as and when it came through. So the website is there. It's probably going to be launched early in the new year, but it will have all of that information in one place and easily to click through to all of the information you'll require in relation to the supplier guide. But to support that, we will also be running a series of regional events. They'll probably start early in the new year, and we anticipate having one in each Highways England region. They'll be supported by Highways England and the key Tier 1s. So that's an opportunity to come in, have a discussion in a workshop environment about all of the contents of the toolkit, and we'll be providing further details of that at our launch event. And so that brings us to that official launch. Well, as I say, it had been my plan to launch here today, but we're just not quite there. But we would like to engage with you and launch that early in 2018. But prior to that, we would welcome views from suppliers as to whether what you've heard today has got it right. Are there any points that you'd like to raise with us? Are there things that you would like to see? Because obviously this bit of work will be best if it's informed with the most up-to-date feedback. So I'd like to thank you all for listening this morning. I'd also like to apologise for the fact that I don't have them with me today, but if you'll indulge us for perhaps a short month or two, there should be something really first class available to you. Thank you all very much this morning.